welcome to the Fit Family Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Dark, and I have a special guest here, Jim Childers. And I met Jim at a networking event that Austin invited me to that I was trying to get out of. He invited me a few times.
Yeah.
And then finally one day, like the stars aligned, and I was like, all right, I got nothing else going on. You miss all the shots you don't take. And then as I got talking with Jim, I realized that we have a lot in common. He's a martial artist, owns a fitness studio, and we'll kind of get into that and what that's all about. But just a lot of common interests. So we got talking, and now we're working together. So I'm glad I went. So why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are, what you're all about, what you got going on.
Yeah, my name is Jim Childers. I've had a totally different career every decade of my life. Once upon a time, I was actually a Green Beret. Then I was an engineer. And when I started getting bored with engineering, I got back into physical fitness and some very specialized type of training that they've done a lot of research on these days that helps you build strength and flexibility much quicker than living in a gym.
So if you don't want to be like me and spend hours and hours and hours every week living in a gym and being a gym rat, there's a better way. You do it in a fraction of the time and still get the same results, right?
Well, there's a lot of research, referenceable stuff on this. They've been studying it for the last 10 or 15 years, and many of the sports teams are now using it so that the team players can spend their time practicing their art instead of slamming weights in the gym.
So it's more like functional.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you're actually spending time, like let's say you're a football player, you're actually doing football drills, you're practicing your plays, your throws, your tackles, whatever,
Exactly.
Instead of spending hours and hours doing the conditioning and strength training.
Right. Now, the old-fashioned conditioning and strength training are still really big in the gyms. Lots of people still really work out that way, and I'm not here to put them down. But you can get hurt living in a gym, and the safe strength methods are designed for that to not occur.
Right, and then, so I mean, how did you stumble upon that? Like, how did you just get back into fitness in general? Like, I mean, obviously you were a martial artist, so to some degree starting there, right?
Yeah. And I had never really gotten out of martial arts. I don't train anymore. Way back in the day, I actually had a school, and I trained 2 junior Olympic champions.
Let's go.
And I had a friend a few years ago who was a football coach who was telling me about this new way to build strength.
Okay.
And I recommended a book that I read called Body by Science by a Dr. McGuff. So I read this book, and it was really enlightening. It's very different stuff. And I started actually trying to train myself in this. And as most of us know, trying to train yourself isn't always the best way to go about things. And then about 4 years ago, a master trainer for this technique moved from California to New Mexico, and I stumbled onto him. So he licensed me and trained me.
Wow, so you actually got a actual like certification in this method.
Absolutely. My wife and I both did it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So what's the difference? Like most people that start working out in the gym and want to increase their strength, they read Arnold's book, right?
Yes.
And they go and they're like, okay, I got to do the bro split, and I've got to do a day for chest, a day for legs, a day for shoulders, a day for arms, and a day for back, and then that's how they learn, and then they end up spending a lot of time in the gym. And it's not that they don't get results, but how is this different?
What they have learned over the last few years, and McGuff specializes in talking about why this works, and way more than we can go into in this chat, But it is about the way you build strength, and you can do it at any age, is to keep your muscles under stress for long periods of time. And that doesn't necessarily mean 10 sets of pump it, pump it, pump it. Mm-hmm. If you do the right exercises very, very slowly for 2 minutes, you can do a maximum stress on whatever musculature you're looking at. And that tends to create better results, and they've been studied now for years, than the other systems that a lot of people still use, and whatever works for you. Mm. But the safety of this method is way up there. We have done this for 4 years, and nobody's even slightly gotten hurt.
Well, it makes sense to me, because if you're doing multiple reps, right? If you're, let's say take a bench press, simple exercise. If you're cranking out tons of reps, yes, you're stimulating the muscle tissue, but you're also wearing the joints. And
yes.
over time and years, especially when you're increasing the load and having like heavy weights, trying to hit your 1 rep max, you're putting a lot of stress on your joints. So if you're doing less reps but more time under tension, it makes sense to me that you kind of save some of your joint and
exactly,
tendons and other tissues that are being engaged while still stimulating the muscle. So it makes sense to me why that would be safer. I mean, is that the main component of why it's a safer, or are there other things that make it safe?
The whole theory is we're very slowly going to work you up in weights, mm-hmm. so that in 2 minutes of extremely slow, push it out, bring it back, you cannot lift it again. And at that point, your brain kicks in. It's the old fight or flight syndrome, right, and decides, well, we got to do something about this. Mm. So it's very unusual to most people, because it is very slow. You might have a 6 or 10 second push out and a 6 or 10 second bring back. Wow. So you might only get, 10 lifts in 2 minutes. And in the beginning, of course, you start off at weights are okay.
Right.
But you can quickly get up to where you're doing the maximum amount of work in 2 minutes. And the goal then is only to choose 7 exercises. Mm. You do 2 upper body, 2 lower body, and 3 core. Your back specifically, there are some very great techniques. Your abs and your neck. So you do those 7 exercises. And that's it. It's a half an hour from when you walk in the door to you leave.
Wow. I'm usually in the gym on the days that I lift for minimum an hour and a half. Yeah. Minimum 90 minutes.
Me too, back in the day.
Yeah. And I love it. I mean, part of it's a hobby, and I enjoy it. But there are times where I have something else going on in life, and I need to sacrifice that time, and I want to be able to get a decent workout in and still, not lose any of the gains that I've made. But man, if I could accomplish that in 20 to 30 minutes, that would be fantastic. So how many days a week are you doing this? Or would somebody recommend?
We know, the old style, the new styles, they know that if you work out 2 or 3 days a week and do it right, that's really all you need to do, because the growth occurs in between. Right. And if you keep pushing the muscles before they've had a chance to grow, you're just not going to get any gains.
Right, because it needs to recover. I always, the way I've heard this, and I like this, and I use this, is the resistance training, where the exercise is like heating up the clay, and then everything else that happens the other 23 hours of the day is what's molding and sculpting it.
I like that analogy. That's really good.
Because a lot of people don't realize that that's when your muscles are actually growing and repairing, and the muscle protein synthesis is taking place is primarily while you're sleeping.
Yeah.
Like that's when everything is regenerating and getting better.
Which, if you're really serious about getting stronger, sleep is a major part of it. You've got to get the right amount.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also, the form of the exercises is so critical. And most of the people that we start with have no idea. You have to learn to breathe properly with every lift. Most people hold their breath.
Mm-hmm.
This is not only not effective, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
And you have to keep your lower gut very tight. This will protect your back. A lot of lifts, you can hurt your back. Mm-hmm. Unless you're keeping, you have to actually pull up on the pelvic floor and pull your lower abs way into your spine, and this protects the lower back.
So there's a whole strategy to this. This isn't just like go to the gym and do things slower.
Right.
This is there's a whole sequence of things that you need to pay attention to. Like there's a real art to it.
And that is why it is so critical that you be coached through this, because there's like a half a dozen things you have to remember during every lift. Mm-hmm. And unless you have somebody standing there correcting you, you'll forget half of them. And I even do that unless my wife's watching me work out and vice versa.
Right.
And we're supposed to know what we're doing.
Well, it's really easy to, especially when you're pushing yourself, to not be aware of what your body's doing.
Exactly.
Because I know that there's times where, you know, I'm trying to hit a new record on a lift. Like recently, my favorite thing to do has been the over the head shoulder press, because I've been able to
press.
Yeah, I've been able to take that up to, I mean, I'm, you know, pressing my body weight over my head. And I probably could, if I wanted to hit my 1 rep max, I obviously need someone there to spot me, but I could probably go more.
Yeah.
And like I get excited about that, but I also know that like when I record myself and I go back and look, like I'm like, man, I'm lucky that I didn't pull something, because I really arching my back, or, you know, my shoulders going too far back, and,
Exactly.
and I'm like, I got to be careful. And I don't have someone standing there saying, okay, let's pull the weight back a little bit and focus on the form. I'm just trying to remind myself. But when you've got, you know, 150 pounds of steel over your head, you're not thinking of like, okay, well, am I breathing? Am I breathing correctly? Is my pelvis tucked in correctly? You know, am I contracting my diaphragm or whatever is part of that technique? I'm just like, you know,
I'm
getting this up. That's all that matters, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, lucky that I haven't ripped something, but at some point, if I'm not careful, that's going to happen. I think, you know, for anybody listening in and watching this, you know, I think the point well made. You absolutely should have somebody who's a professional, who's trained in this, to be able to correct you and point out in those moments and coach you, essentially, right?
Exactly.
Like, okay, remember your breath, or, you know, tighten the lower abdomen, or whatever the technique is.
Yeah. And a lot of people, of course, work out with free weights, and that's good stuff too. Mm-hmm. But we also have some very highly specialized equipment called MedX. Mm-hmm. If you go to a gym, you have to fit into their machines. Mm-hmm. The MedX equipment is adjustable to your body style, your strength, and your range of motion. And this stuff is very critical when you're actually going for 2 minutes of maximum effort. So you don't have to do odd things to try and compensate. Right,
yeah. There's machines at the gym that you can adjust a little bit, but there's only so much you can adjust, like the seat lowers and raises for if you're tall or short, but that's it, right? You know, I see like really tall guys that go to the gym, and there's just certain machines that
can't fit.
There's only so far you can lower that seat, you know, to hit the right angle of whatever the machine is. And so that's pretty cool. So it's completely molds essentially to your specific body type.
Exactly. And these are the machines that, if the physical trainers have the money, these are the machines they own, because they are more expensive
Okay.
than even Nautilus and your standard weight racks and stuff like that.
So these are like highly specialized that pro athletes,
Yes.
and pro trainers would have access to.
Exactly. And this is the only group within 1,000 miles that I am familiar with. California's got them. I think they got some in Houston, but I think that's it locally.
Wow. So for here in New Mexico, let's say someone lived in Albuquerque. Let's say you have, we have a lot of mixed martial arts competitors or people who come to New Mexico. So they would not be able to access that stuff if they would have to go to a place like yours.
The only place
That's
local.
the only place that would be local.
That's right.
Wow.
The other magic behind what we specialize in, and there are articles written by the #1 back surgeon in California who has done YouTube shows and pods on it, says that 80% of all back surgery would be prevented if you use this one particular piece of MedX equipment for simply 3 minutes a week. See, what they realized recently is around the spine there's a whole bunch of muscles called the multifidus muscles that nobody knew what they did forever.
Okay.
But those muscles are designed to keep the vertebrae stimulated. And everything we do in life compresses our spine.
Yeah.
Well, this one machine builds those muscles to keep the vertebrae stimulated. And we have helped many, many people get over pain. And our instructors helped people actually cancel back surgeries.
Wow. That's huge.
It is.
I mean, because any surgery is scary, but back surgery, I mean, one wrong slip of the scalpel and you're
in bad shape.
Yeah, you're not walking again.
Yeah, and once again, there are huge write-ups on this by Denuble is his name, Dr. Denuble. He's published a number of books called Framework, where he describes these techniques. And he and the MedX company have also done some studies on, what's that, twisted spine? What's the name of that?
Scoliosis.
Scoliosis, yeah. There's another specialized machine that MedX makes that will help create similar musculature on both sides of the spine. And if you have a tendency to be pulled left or right, then you can focus on the opposite to attempt to straighten it up. Now, this is obviously not a 2 or 3 month thing, but they've done some highly specialized study in children for this.
Yeah. So much to unpack there. So you're saying that if there's somebody that is having some back pain and they've gone to their doctor and they've said, hey, I got this back pain, and their doctor is saying, well, we may be we need to get in there and correct something.
Yeah.
That they could, and that's an expensive surgery, even with insurance, that they could use this MedX machine for a period of time. You said 3 minutes a day?
2 sessions.
2 sessions.
2 minutes each.
2 minutes each.
On opposite days.
Right.
Yes. And, we've had results with that relieving the pain in a
so it
month
will
or
relieve the pain.
Oh,
The pain will be gone, and then they can forego surgery.
Yes.
Now, is this something they need to continue doing for the rest of their life, or?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, everything we do in life compresses the spine. So yeah, kind of, sort of. You can cut back to like one training a week,
Okay.
but you still got to keep rebuilding that musculature because everything you do is the opposite.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me because, and we probably see a lot of these problems coming from just the world we live in today. We all live very sedentary lifestyles. We spend a lot of time sitting or laying. I would argue that a lot of the lack of strength in the back or the fact that these muscles,
Absolutely.
let me put it this way. I would say that if you took somebody from 100 years ago and you measured, a healthy man at, let's say, 32 years old.
Yeah.
And you measured the muscles in their back there along their spine. And then you compared that to a, typical healthy 32-year-old man today, that 100 years ago, spines were just stronger because you didn't have all these modern conveniences and luxuries. You had to go hunt for your food. You had to go, you walk a lot. There was a lot more manual labor. There wasn't all this technology and advancements and modern conveniences.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, not only is everything that we do in compacting our spine, but our spines, just our typical bodies are less physically strong than they were 100 years ago, just because of the way that we live. Now that's just a normal average Joe. I mean, if you compared, an athlete, to an athlete 100 years ago, comparable, maybe even better because of exercise science today and
true.
other things. But I know tons of people who suffer from back pain and neck pain and shoulder pain.
That is the most complained about ailment, at least in this country. I haven't seen the statistics worldwide.
Mm.
But we work on the lower spine, obviously, and then the middle, and then the neck. And the neck is another piece of specialized equipment.
Mm.
All the stuff we have for the core is very unique, very specialized, and only available through the MedX company.
Right. So if you live in New Mexico and you would want to do this, you either need to go rent or buy your own MedX machine, which would be a lot of money, I imagine.
Yeah.
Or you can come visit Jim and at Revolution Strength Training, right?
That's exactly.
Yeah.
We're in Placitas.
In Placitas, a little ways north of Rio Rancho, like kind of on your way to Santa Fe, right?
It's about 20, 25 minutes from most local places in Albuquerque or Rio.
So a little bit of a drive, but it sounds worth it to me. Like if I was facing surgery, I'd drive. I hate surgery. I hate being in hospitals. In fact, after my leg injury healed up, I swore off. I said I'm never going into an emergency room again, ever. I refuse. I've decided I'm not going to do that anymore. And my wife laughs at me and she's like, well, what if? And I was like, nope. I swore it off. Not doing it.
Well, the other thing.
I mean, I think there's a lot of people who would opt for that. Like if my choices are go under the knife, have this long recovery where I'm going to have to do physical therapy and use machines like this anyway. I anytime you go under anesthesia or the knife, there's always a risk of death.
Yeah.
Or I can do something for 4 minutes a week that's going to not only relieve the pain, but strengthen my back, and I don't have to pay for surgery.
Well, yes, you got to do that machine 4 minutes a week, but it's going to take you a half an hour in the 2 sessions because you got to keep the rest of your body in shape.
Right. You can't just use I got back pain. I'm just here to use the back machine today.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because you got to do the abs as well, and the upper, middle back, and the upper.
But still, that's 1 hour a week. It's 2 30-minute sessions.
That's correct. Yeah, that's it. And that's what most people just can't get their head around. But we've had lots of people. We had one marathoner, some crazy guy, who does these ultra marathons. And he would come in.
Kind of like a David Goggins kind of
Yeah, David
guy?
Goggins kind of stuff. And I think he did a 28-mile Spartan run, jumping, splashing,
Oh, yeah.
leaping,
Those are fun.
climbing. Yeah. And we got him in shape to go do that.
Nice.
And it's the other thing that we've had a lot of success with are shoulder problems, arthritic shoulders, or torn muscles in the shoulders. And you and I have talked a little bit about some of those exercises, which are very, very simple and can be done at home once you've done them enough times to know how to do them properly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's a real common complaint too, is shoulder pain.
Yeah. Torn rotator cuffs, which I've had. Those are no fun because you can't get your arms up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And even you being a taller guy, you can't reach the top of the shelf because you can't.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah, my dad, he just had surgery yesterday, full shoulder replacement. And I wonder, like, had there been, so is it the same for the shoulder? Like, are there things that you can do at Revolution Strength Training or working with you that could prevent shoulder surgery?
Yes. Yeah, and then once again, there's all sorts of articles out there. And this isn't something I dreamed up. I simply had studied this, found the people that were really good at this. And the techniques are really kind of simple. And you look at them and you go, what? But they work.
Yeah.
The shoulders are very complicated. All these different bones and muscles in there. And there are techniques to help keep it all separated instead of bound up, which is where the tears come in.
So what about somebody who doesn't have any issues and they just want to, they're healthy as a horse, they have no pain, but they're already fit, they're already strong, but they want to be able to prevent any future injuries? Will this training help, just be preventative in general?
Well, especially the back work, because sooner or later you're going to do something to your back.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the way it is. And usually to your shoulders as well.
Well, and in talking about, some of the people that you've worked with, you, just by nature of who lives in Placitas, you've ended up getting a older crowd, some people that have come in with arthritis and back pain just from aging and not necessarily taking care of stuff. Some people have had
very serious back surgery have come to us after they've had their PT to make sure they don't have to play this game again.
Right.
We also have a young guy who's a mechanic down on San Mateo, and of course the ultra marathoner. So we've got some younger people as well.
Okay, yeah, because as I hear this, I think about, we initially connected over doing martial arts, and training jiu-jitsu, you're purposely putting yourself in positions where people are trying to injure your shoulder.
Yes,
and if you
indeed.
don't tap, your shoulder's going to get locked, or your elbow, or there's even a move called the twister where you're essentially twisting their spine. And it's very painful, it's very effective, but I know a lot of people that I train with and myself as well that have had a lot of injuries, or just in practice, things have been painful to the point where I can't train to the level that I want to at a competitive level. Certainly not now at my age, but I think about New Mexico in general being a hub for, we have one of the largest, most popular mixed martial arts schools in the country. I mean, people come from all over the world to train at Jackson's because, we've produced champions, but also training here, you have the high altitude, the heat.
Bet.
It's perfect for, you train at high altitude for a few months and then you go back down to sea level and just dominate. And I think about a lot of those professional athletes who, have a nagging shoulder injury that, could cost them a fight, could cost them a
Absolutely.
championship. And I want them to know about Revolution strength training, because if you have these athletes that are, competitive, this is their livelihood. This
You
is how
bet.
they feed their family.
They can't afford
Hop,
to
skip,
be
and a
out.
jump to Revolution strength training in Placitas. Nice drive, worth it.
Yeah.
Absolutely worth it. If it's going to prevent an injury, if it's going to improve their game, if it's going to help them win a fight or just perform better. I also think we have University of New Mexico, and we have all of our athletes at the collegiate level.
Exactly. And
Same thing.
And something you said a minute ago is very important. If you're a very serious athlete of some kind, you always know in the back of your mind you really can't quite do that or quite do this, or you're going to get hurt,
Oh yeah,
which, like you said, wipes you out.
yeah.
So yes, there are things you can do to keep certain muscles in shape that you don't normally think about that helps you be able to do these things.
And these are things you can do just at home.
Yes.
Okay, well, give me an example though. Let's take like shoulder issue. That's a common one, especially for a fighter or a jiu-jitsu or martial artist practitioner.
Well, those torn rotator cuff drills that we discussed are really, really good for keeping the shoulders limber but strong. Okay? And a lot of people have got sciatic pain.
Yeah.
And actually, years ago, I had it so bad I could not function. And I went to a doc, who, of course, gave me one of their magic shots, and the pain went away. And then he said, now I want you to listen, because I'm going to tell you how to make that stop permanently. And he showed me a really silly stretch. I mean, just one stretch. And I said, yeah, sure, right. But 2 days later, no pain, and I have taught this stretching technique to a half a dozen people who say, that's ridiculous. But it releases the pressure on the sciatic nerve. I mean, that can cause your leg all the way down to your ankle, your back, everything. But we've had very good success with this stretch.
I think that's huge, because a lot of my clients, a lot of women who have had children,
Yes.
they end up pregnancy ends up putting a lot of pressure on that nerve, or just walking around carrying a
Kiddos.
human in you.
Yeah.
They complain about sciatic pain.
That's right.
And so being able to do something that can relieve that is huge.
Well, I would like to say I magic and dream this up, but it's not true. This osteopath showed me this. You do have to do it right a few times to figure it out. But yeah, it works.
So, and these are the hip and steel stretches that you're referring to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's and speaking of David Goggins, he's somebody that is a huge proponent of this.
Yeah, Goggins, as insane as he is and worked out like a maniac, kind of hit the wall once in his life and could not figure out what had went wrong. He couldn't train anymore. He couldn't work out. And, of course, that got in his head, because that was his being.
Right.
It was destroying him. And Hippensteel, who I believe was a pentathlon, he's a Brit. I also think he was part of the SAS, which is not exactly a wimpy organization, designed a whole bunch of stretches specifically to keep your muscles from bunching up and tightening up, which is what happened to Goggins. And Goggins swears by him. Says that it totally saved his life.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so somebody can come to Revolution Strength Training, and you'll show them how to do these stretches correctly, and then they can take that, and then they can implement these in their life at whatever frequency is necessary.
That's right. And the only suggestion we would make about that is check in by video occasionally
Yeah.
because it's easy to not do them right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as we were talking about earlier, form is
Everything.
really, really important. And so one question I have is let's say I have shoulder pain. It's annoying me. It's preventing me from being able to, pull off some of the moves that I want to, or hit the PR on the weights that I want to. And I want to do something to make that go away. So I come to Revolution Strength Training. I get it corrected. I avoid surgery. Things are good. Now the aftercare plan. What can I do at home to maintain that, or what lifestyle changes do I need to make sure that I don't have to keep going back to do that? Or is it like this is part of it now? It's surgery or this for the rest of your life.
You do have to maintain it at some level, but that might be, do some stuff once a week, and we were talking about the right technique. You can do the right technique with free weights. You don't have to have these machines.
Right.
But it is this safe strength method that Dr. McGuff's book goes into ad nauseum. But you can do it. And he also talks about how you create energy, how you manifest energy in your body, the things you have to do to create useful muscle, even if you're working out.
Right.
Now, I do a little bit of that nutrition work, but not to a maximum extent.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's important if you're doing this kind of training, and this goes for any workout routine, but you're not feeding your body the nutrients it needs, and there's these nutritional gaps that you're not hitting, then you're not going to have the muscle protein synthesis. You're not going to have the energy.
Exactly.
It's going to affect your mental clarity and your cognition. So, I mean, that makes sense to me. That's my wheelhouse all day.
And that is what you do have to maintain. Whether you're working out hard or not, you got to be doing the right nutrition. And yes, it requires a bit of a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was reading an article the other day about a particular weight loss medication that is kind of blowing up, and everyone wants it because everybody wants the magic pill.
Yeah.
Right. And,
I know which one you're referring to.
And one of the things that was crazy about this research is that they were ultimately talking about how, yeah, it's effective, but one of the side effects is that you're losing lean muscle mass. Part of the weight that you're losing is it's trimming down muscle. You're ultimately losing muscle. And so for the average person that's looking to drop 10 to 15 pounds and just get in better shape, they don't realize that if you just add an inch of muscle to your body, all the way around, that tissue in your body is an active tissue, muscle's an active tissue, can melt 40 pounds of fat. It's like having a bigger engine. It's like if I have a truck and I put a bunch of stuff in the back of the truck, I'm going to use more gas driving to point A to point B than if I didn't have that stuff in the trunk.
Exactly.
It's having to use more energy and more fuel to move a heavier object around, and that's essentially what having more muscle mass on your body and an inch of muscle on your body is that, but that same amount of weight in fat would be a lot.
Yes,
because fat is not as dense, it's not compact fibers, it's just like a mass of fat.
Yeah, and an interesting way to look at it, which kind of shocked my mind once, was a guy, this football coach I was working with said, so let's talk about putting 2 pounds of muscle on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what? He said, okay, I want you to go to the store and pick up 2 pounds of steak and look at it. That's a on your upper body, you think you might smile? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of that increases your metabolism,
Yes.
which is what you were saying,
Yep.
which
Yeah,
keeps
bigger
your engine running faster.
Yep. But I mean, one of the things that we know is, well, how does the phrase go? You know, some people will say, I'm getting too old to exercise. And no, it's you're getting and feeling old because you don't exercise.
This is exactly true, and there have been an article just put out in the New York Times maybe a month ago that says you are never too old to build muscle, and if you do that, you will feel better.
And you'll add years to your life.
Absolutely.
You'll add years to, and quality years, because you'll be able to do things with your family. You know, and so you're improving your quality of life and your longevity, essentially.
Yeah.
You're living longer. And I would argue that, you know, most of us would want that. We want to be around. We want to be able to have these memories with our family and do this. And what's so sad about that medication is that, yes, it's giving you that quick result, but it's taking years off your life at the end of the day.
And we work with one lady in her 80s that wanted to stay in shape to ski and did very well indeed. We have a new guy that just showed up. He was an upper-level doctor, radiologist, who is retired. And he said, "Oh, I'm just sitting around doing nothing. I feel terrible.
Yeah.
What can you do?"
Yeah.
And he is already smiling and coming back and coming back.
Yeah. Yeah. It just improves your life. And I love that for somebody who's older that, you know, is at a place in their life where they know that they want to make this change. They know, like, maybe somebody who's retired and they're not doing anything except sitting around just gaining weight, and essentially they're just letting their body to start atrophy and die. To be able to do something, but instead of having to do like a full-on lifestyle change and, you know, become a fitness fanatic and go to the gym every day,
Ain't gonna happen.
is not going to happen. But to commit, you know, 1 hour a week, maybe an hour and a half, to go do something that's going to get some results, absolutely worth it.
Well, the biggest, most important part of all this is it changes your mentality.
Mm-hmm.
It changes how you think. It really reverses depression. It has some very amazing psychological values.
Right. I heard, and I forget her name, but she's a psychologist, sports psychologist. I don't know what her title is, but she, on a video the other day, was talking about how chemicals are released and proteins are released when you contract muscle tissue that actually combat depression. And so the way she put it is, like, you actually have a natural pharmacy in your body. You just have to activate it to access those chemicals.
Yeah.
And there's still a lot of research that needs to be done around that. But, you know, I definitely know that even on the days where I really, really don't want to go work out, where I'm just tired, I've got so much other things to do, but I know I need to get it done, and I have that discipline where I'm still going to go do it. There's never a day where I go to the gym and then I come home and I go, I shouldn't have done that. Never. I always feel like I'm glad I did that.
And usually once you're moving,
Yeah.
once you've done that first set, everything starts to shift.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a mindset shift too. Like, this isn't so bad. I can
right.
do this.
Yeah.
It's just getting past that initial discomfort of, like, you got to get out there to do it. Just show up for yourself, and then the rest will follow. You know, a lot of people that I work with, that they talk about, like, it's really hard to motivate myself to exercise. And I was like, well, we've got to cultivate discipline. You're 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be motivated to go do it.
Yeah.
You'll have moments that are fleeting, but discipline is when you go do it despite how you feel about it. And what I always say is don't make it some daunting mountain to climb. Right?
Exactly.
Just commit to the first step. Like, I know I need to start walking more, someone will tell me. But, to motivate myself or to cultivate the discipline to go out and walk for 30 minutes, it's just so hard. And I say, okay, so tomorrow morning, here's what you're going to do. You're going to get up. You're going to put your, whatever you would go for a walk in, whether, your jogging pants, your exercise clothes, whatever, you're going to put your tennis shoes on and you're going to step outside.
Yeah.
Can you commit to that? That's it.
Exactly.
Just that. Well, yeah, that sounds easy. Okay. Well, let me know how it goes tomorrow.
Yeah,
and every time, I actually, as soon as I did that, I just went and walked. And I ended up walking for 20 minutes. And I feel great. It's because you took that first step. Yeah. You didn't make it a mountain that you have to climb.
And that's one of the things you train on, I know, is to set simple procedures in place so that people have a schedule. Very few people can just go make themselves work out.
Right.
But if you have a schedule and you know who, what, where, and when you're supposed to do it, and if you can do it with a partner.
Yeah, having someone that's going to hold you accountable, and it's fun to do it with somebody too.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll, my wife and I will go to the gym together, and she does a completely different thing than I do. She'd die if she did what I did, but she works out hard, but she does her thing, I do, I think, but we're there together, we're doing it together, and it's still, it's fun. And and I have a lot of equipment at home, a lot of, tons of exercise equipment. I mean, I have a whole gym in my garage. Right. But it's really odd to me because, like, if there's a day where I decide, like, I don't have time, I'm not going to be, or I'm expecting a visitor or a package, I have to be home for this, I'll decide that I want to work out at home, and then it's so easy to do that it's easy not to do.
That's exactly. Well, you got other things you can do.
Right. It's easy to get distracted, whereas if I drive to the gym, like, the gym is the gym. That's what you do what you do in the gym, but at home, there's a lot of other stuff that, easily, distracts yourself. So I find for me, like, I'll still work out at home, but it's 10 times harder. And I think this is why a lot of people will buy, like, the expensive exercise equipment.
Yeah,
and then what does it do? It becomes a coat rack. It becomes I use it. I hang my coats on it every day.
But that's a really important point. Because what either one of us do, if you've got the gear, let's set up a schedule. Let's help you with video. Let's move this thing forward so that you'll do something.
Do something. Exactly.
Is it optimal? It's fine. It'll work if you'll let us help you do it right.
Yeah, that's so important. So what about somebody that, let's say they found you and they learned about these machines, but they live in Idaho.
Sure.
And they can't necessarily, they could make a trip to use the machine, but they can't travel from Idaho to New Mexico every week to get the benefits of this, but they need something. They don't want back surgery. What could you do to help that person?
Well, once you've reached a certain level of okayness, especially if you're familiar with the old Bowflex equipment.
Yeah.
Which is not expensive.
No.
And it does not take up much room. And yeah, you could set yourself up with some of that gear, and once again, with some video backup occasionally, keep yourself continuing to get stronger and move forward. And the Bowflex people, who were actually some of the innovators behind Nautilus, behind MedX.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There's some similar people here. They have come up with some exercises on the Bowflex equipment that gives you some close, not perfect similarities to some of the MedX equipment.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Because I imagine there's things that you can do, and you can still use the safe strength method even with a Bowflex. And what I love about, a Bowflex or a cable machine is that you have that constant tension.
Yes.
Where there's, let's take a chest fly, for example. A lot of people will get the dumbbells to do the fly. They'll keep their arms out straight. There's tension here, right? It's stretching here. But then when you get to the top, there's no more tension.
That's right.
Gravity is, there's no more tension. You're not activating this. It's not till you get back here.
That's
where there's
right.
tension. But with a pec deck or a Bowflex or some kind of cable machine, there's constant tension all the way through that full range of motion.
Exactly. It's because of that cam theory.
Yeah.
And of course, Bowflex did it totally differently. Those rods they use increase the tension the further they're stretched.
I have a funny story. I used to have one of the original Bowflexes, and I wasn't allowed to keep it inside because it was taking up too much room, and it was just an eyesore. So I had it outside, and it was like, man, in the winter, I was shredded because those rods, when they got cold,
they were much
harder. Then I was like, I thought these were the 50s. I could do this last time. What's going on? And in the summer, I was like, I am so strong, but the rods heated up. And
That's right. And that is definitely one of the drawbacks of Bowflex machines, unless they're in a standard environment.
Right.
Now, the new ones that have those...
Like the plates that have the
plates in them.
Those are different.
I have never got a chance to use one
I had one of those. I liked the rods better because I felt like you got constant tension, but it felt like a compound bow. When you have a compound bow, and it's hard at first, and then it's easy, and then it's a little hard at the end, but then it's easy, and you can hold it. So you can hold it for a long time. It felt like that. There were parts where it was like that beginning push was a little easy, and then right when the muscle was fully engaged, then it was hard, and then at the top of the rep, it was a little easy. So if you were doing it by yourself, it kind of emulated having a spotter, which I thought was cool. Not perfect. The machine that I've heard about that I'm fascinated by is the tonal gym, the one that has like a TV on your wall and has the cords that come out of.
I am not familiar with that one.
It has tonal.
Tonal?
Yes. And it has a button that you can load the weight or unload the weight.
Wow.
And you can do like up to 400 pounds. And so, let's say you're doing a bench press or a squat or whatever. You can load the weight, but then if you get to the point where you can't anymore, you can unload the weight, and then you're not going to hurt yourself because you can attach it to a bar too. And you got to imagine like 400 pounds, like...
This sounds like a very expensive toy.
It is a very expensive toy, but if somebody had one of those, or even a Bowflex, or even just the typical machines that you have at a gym, but you learned how to apply this time under tension technique effectively, and you learn the things that you need to focus on while you're doing it. If you learn the breathing, the posture, everything that you need to concentrate on, that you started doing that, and someone would go to the gym and they may think that you look weird because you're going real.
And they do think you look weird doing that in a gym.
Well, because most people
slam iron.
Yeah, they're cranking reps.
Yeah, that's right.
I definitely implement a significant amount of time under tension in my training, and when I train people, I give them a tempo, and I tell them the eccentric motion when you're lowering the weight is more important to go slower on that, because that's when a lot of the work is happening. And also, I'll tell them the pause for most exercises at the stretched part, because the recent research that has come out with stretch mediated hypertrophy is that they used to think that when you contracted the muscle, when it was fully contracted and you're just pumping oxygenated blood into it and getting that pump, that's when you're getting the most. But what the research is finding now, and if you watch or read any of Menno Henselman's stuff, they're saying that it's the pause at the fully stretched part of the muscle, that is where you're getting more growth, especially if you're looking for bigger, more volumized muscle tissue that ends up being stronger. What's bigger is stronger, right? That it's the stretch part for most exercises. It's not to say that there's anything wrong with full range of motion or that you shouldn't ever contract your muscle completely. You should do full range of motion. But they're also saying that partial reps, like long length partials,
Exactly.
are actually really good for that. And so I imagine that ends up just naturally being part of this, because as you're doing something slow, you're staying in that stretched position for longer.
Exactly. Now, the article you're referring to, show me that, or show me how to get a hold of it,
Sure.
because I have not read that.
Yeah, it's actually Menno Henselman did a few videos on it that I'll send you. It's really interesting stuff, and he'll talk about how to, especially for bodybuilders, people who are looking to train for aesthetics,
Yeah.
and bigger muscles. He's looking at the actual, best practices in terms of doing that, in terms of like time under tension, stretch mediated hypertrophy, rep ranges. He covers all of that, and it's all backed by not just one study, but what's it called, a meta-analysis, where they
Yes.
take a bunch of studies.
Exactly.
So he's not one of these science guys who cherry picks like this research says this, so I can make myself sound smart and just cherry pick this one article, and then people will believe me, because people do that.
Yes.
You look at one scientific reference, and just because it's science, we're gonna believe it just because you said it was. But if we're really going to get into that, we need to look at a meta-analysis where it takes like all the different studies and where's the Venn diagram of where things intersect.
Exactly.
And this study confirmed this. This one as well. This one as well. So we're saying what's in the middle here is most likely the most accurate.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
It's good stuff. So,
Really.
well, it's been awesome chatting with you, Jim. I want to make sure that I put a link down here in the comments for anyone who's watching this, anyone who's interested. If you live in, I'd say Albuquerque, Sandoval County area, but if you live in New Mexico,
Yeah.
because I would say what Jim does at Revolution Strength Training is worth a drive from anywhere, could be life changing. I would encourage you to check out the Facebook page. Go there. There's lots of amazing content and articles and things that we're putting on there about a lot of this stuff. But also, come check out Revolution Strength Training. Jim is willing to, if you use the link below, set you up with a full free session just to come in, have a free consultation, meet Jim, talk about what your goals are, and see if this system and the things that he does, a huge wealth of knowledge, can help you, whether you're a professional athlete, whether you're somebody who just wants to improve their golf swing, or you're somebody that's been struggling with some serious back pain or sciatic pain or shoulder pain, and especially if you've recently had surgery and you want to recover faster, or if the doctor is using the S word and saying, we're probably gonna have to cut you open, please come see Jim. Please come visit Revolution Strength Training, and this is well worth your time to do so. Could be life changing.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming by today, and
Yeah, this has been really the first time I've ever done anything like this.
Oh, you
This
did-
is
you
very
did
interesting.
fantastic.
I think it worked well.
yes.
Good.
All right. Good stuff.